After my last video on photo editing, I got a lot of people who left comments about how you shouldn't be doing a lot of photo editing to your images. It should be a pure art form, something that you created out of the camera. And my problem with that is a camera basically takes our three-dimensional world and makes it one-dimensional. And with photo editing, it makes it more of a three-dimensional world. It also gives you an opportunity to have the subject pop out of the screen, gives you some options for fixing problems that you might have had when you took the picture. So I would love to hear what you guys think. What software do you use? I use Photoshop for most of my editing, but what do you guys use? And I would bet you that most of the steps I'm showing you today can be done with the software that you have. So come along and enjoy this adventure. So what I want to do is edit this picture to be printed. Now, this picture has some basic issues. It needs to be cropped is the big issue. It's got this stick coming off here, and it's got all this open blue here. This is not adding anything to the pictures. So the first thing I do is select my crop tool. And the second thing I do is select what ratio I want to do it. 1:1, 4:5. I'm going to do an 8.5:11 picture here. So this is something that's very important. You don't want the vendor who's printing your photos to recrop your picture to be there, or even worse, to have the software for your printer do it. So what I'm going to do is just move this around here, and basically I'm just grabbing the picture and moving it around as needed. So that about there. And I want this picture right about here. Now I want to take this stick out of here, but I want to keep this little stick in here. So I'm just going to come down about here. I want the bird. You want your main image to be either off to the left or off to the right. You don't want it dead center like that. You want it kind of, because if I put it dead center, I got all this stuff on this side making the image really awkward. And then where's the bird looking to? So you want to have it, the rules of thirds, about there. That's pretty good. Alright, so we still have some problems here. This stick is overexposed. It's drawing away from the picture. The bird's overexposed. We got all this blue, and then we got all this black down here. So the first thing we're going to do is edit the background. Now I'm just concentrating on the background. I'm going to lower the exposure just a tiny bit. I don't want to go that far. That's pretty good right there. Contrast, I want to bring that up here. So you notice how the black is now, or the blue is now darker, and the blacks are kind of getting a little too dark. We want the highlights up a little bit, shadows up a little bit. I want to lower the whites. And what I'm going to do is raise the blacks. I want to get those blacks kind of not as black. So you see how the background looks really good here. We're going to fix this little kind of too much blue up here a little bit later. But for the most part, this background is pretty good. It's not distracting from the image, but the background's good. Now you're saying to yourself, well, the bird is overexposed and not correctly exposed, and it looks like it's being washed out, which is true. So what I'm going to do is select the masking tool. Now this masking tool is an incredibly powerful tool. So the first thing I want to do is edit the bird in the stick here. So what I do is just select subject, and I'm going to let the computer scan the image and see if it can select the subject that I want. And it does a pretty good job of it. It's a kind of powerful tool, but it does do a good job. So you can see here all the stuff that's in red is my selected. And if you look up here, you have a silhouette kind of image of what it is. But I don't want to edit this stick. I just want to edit this stick and the bird. So what I do is hit the subtract tool, hit the brush, and what I do is I use my bracket key, the left bracket key to make it larger, and I want to remove this. So I'm just holding down the mouse button and removing this. Now I'm not using anything other than Lightroom to do this. So the only thing I'm going to edit is the bird and this stick. And you see it's really good. So if you look over here on the right hand side, you have this gray box, so we can edit here. So what I want to do is just bring down the exposure a tiny bit. I don't want to bring it down too much. That's pretty good. I want to bring the contrast up a little bit. That's a little too high. You see how right here it's getting a little blocky. You go here. The highlights I'm bringing up a little bit here. The shadows I'm bringing up just a tiny bit. Now the whites, I'm going to bring those over. It's too much. We're going to actually go this way here. And the blacks, I'm going to bring those up a little bit here. So what I'm worried about is these whites right here on the breast of the bird, the head of the bird. Now I also have a hot spot here. And if you look at this stick here, you can still see that it's really contrasting, but it's not distracting from the picture. I bring up my sharpness a little bit and my clarity a little bit here. Not a whole lot, and that made a big difference in this bird. The bird looks like it belongs there, but because we made these little bit of edits, it kind of pops out a little bit. But we do have a problem with this big stick. It is overexposed and distracting from the bird. But I want to keep it in there. I could simply remove it, but I don't want to do it. I want to keep it in there. So what I want to do is add a second mask. And I hit the brush tool here. And then I'm going to shrink the brush tool by hitting the left bracket button. And I just draw in using my mouse. I have the mouse button hold down. And I want to have this stick in here because I think it adds a little bit to it. So we drew it there. Again, we have our gray box, and the only thing we're going to edit is the stick. And I'm just going to simply grab that, bring the exposure down a little bit. I'm going to bring the contrast up a little bit to highlight, and the highlight's too much, and I think that's too much there too. You know, you don't want to have it like it looks like it doesn't belong there. Shadow. I'm going to bring that exposure up just a tiny bit. And one thing I want to do is bring the whites down a little bit. Now if you look at it, you can still see the stick. It still adds a little balance to the picture, but it's not distracting from the bird itself. We hit done here. Now we look at the image here. It looks pretty good, but we still up here in the left-hand top corner, we have all this blue here. We have a little bit of blue down here, and that kind of, you know, doesn't look right. And we have this really dark spot over here. Now, one thing we could do is just, you know, grab the vignette tool and just hammer that over. But I don't want to do that. The vignette tool is a very powerful tool. I mean, you could literally do it like that, and it would really make the bird pop out of there. But I don't want to do that. Vignetting is one of those things where you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. So what I want to do is just bring a little bit up here. You see how up here the blues are kind of being muted a little bit here. You got kind of like a little bit of balance here. It really is a good picture, and this is kind of like a straightforward edit. And from here, what I would do is just print it. Either send it to my vendor and have it printed, or I would print it myself. And it's pretty straightforward to set this up for printing. You don't have to do all this for putting pictures on social media, because a lot of the time social media gets crushed down. But I definitely would be really happy with this image in my house. So I'm hoping you got something out of this. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the video, because that really helps us in the YouTube world. Become a Patreon supporter. Your support allows us to keep doing this. My name is Leahy. I want to thank you for watching.